Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Bethany. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Bethany, I learned about you and what you do some time ago, and we had plans. We still have plans, but let us all in. What is it that you do? What is your company doing?
Sure. So I represent Atlantic Flag and Pole, and we are a small family business. We started our company about 12 years ago, and we are very patriotic just as individuals and as a family. But then we also offer products that really strike a chord with those that are more patriotic at heart. So our primary product is our Phoenix Hill Sloping Flagpole. Of course, it's made in the U.S. And then we also provide flags and different things that help us and citizens across the country show their pride. And so that's something we've become very proud of, and we've worked really hard to offer and continue to grow as a company, encouraging both for us as a business, but also I think it speaks to the spirit of patriotism across the U.S. Whether that's being advertised or not, we're definitely seeing a big spike in that this year.
Yes, it's lovely. As someone who came from former Soviet Union and being listened to by a lot of people who are share the same trait in their biographies, we had this. I had this feeling. America was the United States were part of my life since I was growing up, a little boy, because family got split in the course of years of Soviet Union, and big chunk of family left even before the revolution of 1917, and they were trying to establish their lives in the United States. And I learned from a relative here that somebody was, a lot of hardship, a lot of trouble. Nevertheless, the rest of the family, like girls, left and boys stayed. And I am a grandson of one of the boys. But it was always American part of the family was always on the radar, so to speak. It was never hidden by my grandfather. They wrote to each other back and forth. He traveled to in 1971, I believe. So the American flag, for those who hated the communists, who hated the Soviet Union, who wanted to leave, who was not comfortable, to put it mildly, with anti-Semitism and socialism and communism, the American flag was such a great symbol. So I let me get to the kind of to the chase, seeing the circumstances. I see a lot of people recently, in recent years, burning American flag. Someone who came from Soviet Union never did it. I never heard of saw anybody who coming from a different country would burn an American flag. We can march with Russian flags, we can march with Ukrainian flags, we can march with Israeli flags, but we would never denigrate an American flag. I never heard of it. What's your experience? Why would people do such thing? Why is it such a strong symbol that people want to fight the symbols? What is behind it
Um,
for people?
well, I think that there's a lot of deception. I think here in America, certain stories are written and portrayed a particular way. And there has just been this kind of underlining movement, I think, or recently that really portrays America in a very negative light. Now, obviously, we're imperfect. That's true of any, excuse me, that's true of any country. But the ideals that we were founded on, in the fact that we believe in freedom for all citizens, and that we're really actually a constitutional republic, not even really a democracy, but these kinds of truths that we hold strong to should resonate with all Americans because that equals freedom for all of us, regardless of our religion, regardless of our, ideologies, however we practice our daily lives. It should resonate with everyone in theory. And yet there is this kind of growing sense of um, almost, I would say, not even dislike, but hatred for America and, this idea of being ashamed of it. And I really think a lot of it comes from, without getting into too many conspiracy theories, I think that a lot of it comes from a certain narrative that's been painted that, we're extreme one way. Like we're, to love America and to believe that we as Americans should, think of our country first and all of these things. It's not patriotic anymore. Now it's selfish and greedy, and it's putting down other cultures, or it's putting down, even though we're the great melting pot, we've always been for other cultures. But we can't lose America's culture in the process.
Of course.
And so I think that there are those who really don't want us to maintain that constitutional republic. And for those who don't like that and want more control and want a more socialist type of society, the best way to start doing that is to encourage people to not have pride in their own country, but to start to put it down. And I think that's what you're seeing with the American flag losing a lot of its respect as well.
Yeah, but it's also this general strategy. I am not a kind of unbeliever, like 100% in the coronavirus or other things that are bandied about, like BLM, Antifa, etc. I don't want to go into those weeds, at this point. But it's something that I see coming from above, coming from the New York authorities, in particular New York City, where they try to keep people depressed. They try to keep people caged. They don't want people get together. It's ridiculous. Or San Francisco, the recent utterings, to say it mildly, of the Governor Newsom, etc., is just unbelievable. Like 3 families, 6 people. It's for Thanksgiving, and don't travel on Thanksgiving. You know what? Shove it, buddy. Let me ask you. People send you videos. People send you photographs. Since once they become proud owners of your flags and the flagpoles, all USA made. What do you feel when they send it to you? Is it older people, younger people? How they present themselves?
So I would say our demographic is very much so a lot of older people. So we do see a lot of like retired military veterans. But then we see a lot of military families in general. So even if they're kind of in the younger demographic, I would say they're more conservative, typically speaking. It's not to say that we don't sell to all kinds of different people, but just from the actual looking at the facts and statistics, which we've looked at because marketing is important for our business. Definitely, conservative, military supporting, military families. That tends to be civil service workers, firefighters and police officers. There's just that's typically our demographic. And I would say I think part of the older generation being more apt to want to fly a flag and show follow proper flag etiquette, I would think has a lot to do with being around longer and being able to personally see history and only being like one generation away from very significant things that have happened. The younger generation, while there's definitely a conservative movement in the younger generation as well, the younger generation, if they don't dig deep enough and are only processing what they're being fed by people who may have a different perspective, they've not lived through a lot of those things, So for me, I've had, my grandfather was in the military. My parents, I've been trained and taught in art. I was homeschooled in high school. We were really big on history. My kids are homeschooled. We're very big on history. And if you know history and you know where you came from, I'm confident that my kids will make the right choices in where they're going to go. And so I think that that's something you see a lot with the younger generation, and probably partly why the older generation is more apt to be celebratory of America and expressing American pride.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned older people buying flags. It seems sometimes that, it's part of what you said, of course, that wisdom comes later in life. And if you're not how to say it, inoculated with the knowledge of American history and patriotism, and won't find a minute to stop and think about the flag, the country you live in, it will come to you. You'll lose a lot of productive time in your life. Like you look at today's students, and look at the people who mask themselves and beat other people with bats in the streets and rob the stores. And I'm talking about people of all colors. It's not necessarily the so-called minorities who are presented as majorities, which is not a fact at all. So people salute the flag. They make videos. They send it to you, and you put it on your website, and you show how to properly the proper attitude towards flag and how to do it. Can you share with us because our people? Good thing if they put the flag up, but they don't know when to get rid of it. And at one, I mean, when the moment when flag is too worn, and what to do with that, because I pass a lot of businesses sometimes in New York, here in Brooklyn, that they're proud to show a flag, but the flag is torn already, it's worn. I have a photo, one of my promotional photos, so to speak, where I have a flag which is worn, like half of it left, and I hold it in front of me, and properly it's supposed to be burned, right? As something that is it had to be. You cannot use a flag that is defective, right? On public display.
Right. So I picked up a lot of flag etiquette over the years, and I've been, schooled by many military folks and veterans as well. So I had a very basic knowledge of flag etiquette when I first, got involved with this business and all of that. So I have picked up a few things along the way, and I'm still learning for sure. But, basic flag etiquette, you're not supposed to let the darkness fall on the American flag at night. So you're supposed to keep your flag lit. Yes, you're not supposed to fly an American flag once it's hit a certain, level of worn or it's tearing. It's hard to say what that exact moment is. I think if it's visibly worn, the colors have faded, there's a decent amount of obvious tearing, then it's time to retire it. And so typically that's what people who are really religious about flag etiquette will call it retiring the flag. Yes. And it's interesting because I actually just sent out to our customer base an email asking if, because I only have my American flag on my pole, and it's pretty new, so it's not ready to be retired. So I sent a message to all of our customers and said, hey, will you help me out? I'm bringing my kids on a field trip, and we're talking about flag etiquette, and we've been doing, they came voting with me, and we talked about civic duties and all that. So I said, will you send me your worn and torn American flags so that I can go through the process of properly, retiring the flag with my children?
That's the word. I didn't come to my mind. I'm sorry. When I spoke about the flag, the retiring flag. Yeah.
And typically burning the flag is probably the most, agreed upon method that's appropriate. You can, but it's the main thing is it's supposed to be done ceremoniously. So you can actually bury the flag as well. But the big thing is, making a ceremony out of it. So if you're burning the flags, like typically Boy Scouts or like the American Legion will collect flags and they'll have ceremonies where they retire the flags respectfully, and they will, salute the flag, and they will maybe say the Pledge of Allegiance, or they'll line up and they'll one at a time put the flags in the fire while they watch it burn ceremoniously. So these are things that you can do. It's really just showing respect as it's being
absolutely
retired. And so that's typically how that works. And so just find a local place that will accept a flag. VFW halls, American Legion sites. Some police departments and fire departments also have like kind of those drop sites. And then they will take all those flags they've collected to an organization that cares for them.
And it should be on the ground too, right? You can't. It's not allowed to lay on the ground. The flag.
Yes. Yep.
So, it's very enlightening, and because people kind of come here, and a lot of people take America as something like as a disposable culture, and they use it. Oh, I feel patriotic. I'll fly a flag. I don't feel like it, I'll throw it away. It's not the way that it's done here, and that's America is absolutely full country in every which way, and people shouldn't impose their stupid ideas, be it from communist country or capitalist country, on the country they came to live in and to prosper in, and a lot of people succeed. So you live in the part which is the red part of New York State, right? You're by Albany.
No.
No?
I'm in
Oh, you're by
Albany.
Albany.
Yeah, Albany's not. I will say out where I live, because I'm in the outskirts. I'm in Albany County, but I'm not in the city. And we live in the country, and it's definitely um, red out there. You know, you got folks, they don't just have Trump signs, they have like homemade painted Trump signs, you know, out in the country. But I'm technically in a blue county.
I see. Because it's I don't want to talk about the elections now because it's very, not that we are afraid to talk about it, but it's so undecided. It's so kind of imbalance, and I feel so deeply for the president who is, he's a different person from what I am or what I would like my children to be, but he's a perfect man for the job, and we talk about the job. Presidency is a job, and he's doing it. So I hope that we will come to a conclusion that would be beneficial to the country, because I cannot think of Biden and Harris taking over and adding two more states, and we're gonna make new flags then, right?
I mean, who knows? Who knows what will happen? It's hard to imagine.
I
But
hope
right
they
now,
will.
I'm just
Yeah.
focused on, trying to make sure that things are done correctly, and
No,
that's
absolutely.
our elections being run properly um, is so imperative for Americans to maintain, who we are, whether it goes Democratic or Republican in any election. I think the biggest thing is we need to take a step back and say, how is it things are being run so difficultly right now? Why do we still have votes out? Why are we? It wasn't a shock that the mail-in, ballots were a thing this year. They've been pushing that for a while. So why didn't we have systems in place to be able to accommodate that? There's just a lot of stuff that I think is leaving Americans with unanswered questions. And so I think it's important that we really just take a step back and make sure that there's accountability and transparency in place so that we can trust whatever is declared as being really a proper representation of the American people and their wishes.
It's important to remember what Mayor Giuliani, a former mayor of New York City, said recently. We are not fools. Don't give us this crap. We can see through you. We understand why they started asking the president, Trump, would you concede? Would you concede the election if you're not elected? You see where it's coming from? Nevertheless, Constitution is very important, but also elections is the second biggest pillar, if not the first, because it's the people who who defend the Constitution. And of course, one of the pillars is the flag. Flag is keeping the spirit up. Flag is something we write our history on. So we are at this crossroads. We are talking to Bethany, the co-owner of the company Atlantic Flag and Pole. The company is upstate in New York, in Latham, New York. She's a wonderful person. She sells this wonderful product, very good American flags. This is not a commercial, by the way. This is just something that, the business has got like stigmatized. They're not allowed to be. Everything should be a commercial when it comes to business, right? No, we're just talking to people. People do certain things, and those certain things are not your regular things. They're not sandwiches. They're not jeans. They're not jewelry. They're an American flag. And to buy it, you have to be special, and it's a special product. So, Bethany, thank you so very much for finding time for us. It's a busy season for you, and I predict it will stay busy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
I hope.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Music.
Thank you.
Hold on a second. I'll be back. Let me just play a second. One.